Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Jeff Lopes. Jeff has over 2 decades experience as a serial entrepreneur, building brands like Kimura from his home basement to a multi-million-dollar global brand that has sold over 250,000 pairs of boxing gloves. Jeff's here to educate, guide, and drive you on the process of bringing your ideas and dreams to reality with the inspiring stories from some of the top business minds.
I want to welcome everyone to this week's Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. This week's a bit more special than the prior few weeks we started our podcast. It's podcast number 5, but this week we have our first in-studio guest, which I'm so excited to have. This week's guest is Jason Dowse. Jason is not only a personal friend, but he's also a strength and conditioning specialist, founded Pro Strength Inc., and has been working with pro athletes for a little over 18 years. On top of Pro Strength Inc., as an entrepreneur, Jason has founded Epoch Health and Lifestyle and Performance brand, which is a perfect program for entrepreneurs to help identify specific areas they could change in their lives. The system is applicable and effective towards helping guide you through the transformation in life. The system will help you with stress relief, your sleep patterns, your overall fitness and health. If you're an entrepreneur and you're feeling like your wheels are churning and you seem like you're upside down all the time, might be a good time to take a look at your overall lifestyle. And this might be the perfect listen for you today. We are live. I want to welcome to our studio our first guest of Jeff Knows Inc. podcast, Jason Dowse. Jason, I want to say hi to everyone.
Jeff, how are you? Thanks for having me today.
Good, buddy. Thanks for coming on our show. Jason, like I said in our intro, is a specialist when it comes to stress relief and pretty much anything to do with sleep, training, fitness, all that stuff. So I'm going to get Jason to give a kind of little background on what he's done, what brought him to the stage, and kind of what got him to this path.
Yeah, a little bit, kind of fast forward through my background. I grew up in a small town in Ontario called Cannington. One of those small towns, there's about 2,000 people. Grew up playing sports my whole life, got really involved in baseball. Really around kind of my teenage years, I started getting involved in strength and conditioning or weight training, just kind of messing around in the basement with some old equipment that my dad had, and that kind of ignited a passion for me. I saw how it translated to me performance-wise and on the field, and then that just kind of led me down that road of heading to school, wanting to study physical education, kinesiology, and kind of getting down the strength and conditioning path. Working with general clientele and then getting more involved with elite level athletes, you kind of see the habits that those top performers have, and then you kind of are able to translate that back to your own life. And then over the last few years, you kind of see more and more people reaching out, want to get involved in exercise, but they're kind of missing some key factors in their life. So whether it's sleep, whether it's dealing with stress, whether it's nutrition, and that kind of created the framework for kind of where we're at today with that.
Let's go back a little step back here. With growing up, is this something you thought you'd always do in the fitness industry?
Not necessarily. I wanted to play professionally, so that was kind of my first goal that I always had in mind.
What sport were you primarily focused on?
Baseball, 100%.
Oh, seriously,
obsessed,
huh?
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought it would be hockey.
No, wasn't it? Yeah, Canadian. You'd expect that. Played hockey when I was really young, but baseball just kind of took over. So,
what level did you get to? Were you playing rep or were you playing traveling?
Yeah,
ball?
Rep, travel through Ontario, and then had an opportunity to go to a school in the States, but it fell through due to financial reasons. So that's why I kind of took a year off after high school and then stayed in Ontario.
Where'd you go to? Did you go to university or college?
Yeah, went to university. I went to Brock University in St. Catharines.
And you finished your kin there?
Yep.
Very good. So were you when you first finished your kin, did you work in an actual training facility, like a gym or something for somebody?
I did, yeah, just a regular commercial gym. So spent 2 years, 2.5, 3 years maybe, I guess, kind of just doing general personal training, general clientele, but then wanted to get more involved with athletes. So had an opportunity to go and intern with a strength coach in Montreal named John Chamberg, who at the time was training a lot of...
John Chamberg, you worked with him, huh?
Yeah, briefly. A lot of high
So John Chamberg, the JSP guy?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, George at the time, Kenny Florian, a lot of those top MMA guys. So that was my first real experience into kind of seeing what elite level professional athletes are doing and how much different it was than kind of the commercial setting.
So did you actually spend some time in Montreal training with them?
Yeah.
How long were you out there for?
2 months, I guess.
Roughly. Oh, very, very cool. So once you're in Montreal, how did you translate from MMA guy essentially to the baseball industry where you were primarily focused on for a little while?
So during my time in commercial gym setting, through the NSCA, National Strength and Conditioning Association, they have a job board, and every year all the job postings come up there. So I was noticing a bunch in professional sports, professional baseball. I would apply, but being a Canadian citizen, pretty much all of those job postings, you need to have an American work visa. So that was kind of out of the question. So everyone just kept bouncing back from that. There was one that did reply to me, and that was Brian King, who was with Blue Jays at the time. And he said they didn't have any openings, but he just said, keep in touch. So then just kept in touch with him via email for about a year, 6 months to a year. And then kind of while I was in Montreal, he sent me another email saying, hey, send me your resume again. Some things are changing here. Long story short, did that, met him at a conference later that January, and he offered me the chance to intern in Toronto with them during the 2010 season.
2010 season. So you've been, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So you've been working with pretty much pro athletes for the last 10 years.
Yeah, almost exclusively.
Oh, that's awesome. With the pro athletes, do you still work with an average Joe, an average person, or are you still focusing on the pro athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of how that would work. So off season wise, I would come back to Ontario here, and it would be just looking at regular clientele. It would be, I was at a facility in Whitby. So that was kind of a mix of athletes and then general population clientele coming in. So it depends on whether it's someone who just wants to move better, feel better, or it could be an amateur hockey player, an amateur baseball player training through their in-season or their off-season, just trying to get stronger and faster and just be a better performer. So that's kind of where that led.
So one thing we haven't talked about, I've known Jason now for a couple of years. Through the process, I've seen Jason turn himself into an entrepreneur. Starting off, he had his pro strength company, but now he's ventured onto Epoch, which is a lifestyle. Why don't you let the audience tell a little bit of what Epoch is? What do you do with it?
Yeah, so we'll backtrack a little bit. So Pro Strength Inc. came out of actually seeing what was in Montreal and seeing John set up there. And for myself at a young age, it was like, wow, this is eventually what I want to have someday, is your own spot. Athletes are coming in and just that environment where everyone's training and you're just working to help them be the best that they possibly could be. So I had an opportunity to set up my own space here in Brampton. Over the last few years, worked with a lot of high school athletes, some professional athletes in there as well. More recently, kind of in 2017, my personal life exploded kind of out of nowhere. Was married, that blew up, had to sell my home, just kind of had to reevaluate a lot of different things kind of unexpectedly. I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with this as well. But when that kind of thing happens, I figured there's two paths you can take. You can kind of sit in your misery and kind of be ignorant to everything, or you can kind of go on a path of self-improvement, self-discovery. And that was the path that I chose. So got more involved in certain things, started taking my sleep a little more seriously, started taking my nutrition a little more seriously. Obviously, stress was a huge one. 2017 was kind of riddled with stress, and I could feel that affecting me physically. So found a good avenue to deal with that, and that was kind of incorporating meditation or daily mindfulness in my life, and that was absolutely the biggest factor by far. Again, around this time frame, so some more general population clientele were reaching out to me in Brampton saying, hey, I want to jump into an exercise program. And I kind of had these pieces in place, like, okay, well, if we just throw you into a demanding exercise program without looking at these other factors, that may not be the most beneficial thing for you. We may just be doing more damage than good. Everyone thinks they just want to jump into an exercise program, whether it's your New Year's resolution, like, hey, I want to get in shape. And they just run to the gym and go full tilt for about a week to 10 days. And then kind of what happens, everyone just falls right off, right? It's because you're not taking into account all those other factors. Just keep adding things on the plate and eventually something's going to give. So that's kind of how Epoch was born. Epoch was created, and we wanted to take all these different lifestyle factors and individualize it a little bit for you. So whatever your biggest area of need is, maybe it's stress, maybe it's sleep, maybe it's nutrition, maybe it is exercise, or maybe it's just goal setting. But we want to create that one-stop health and wellness resource for everyone where they can kind of find those pieces and implement it into their life in an actionable way.
So with the pandemic we're going through right now, and with small businesses right across North America, right across the world, essentially, falling apart right now. Everybody's struggling. Everybody's trying to get by. What are some key points or some key factors that people could do to help relieve the stress and help get them through this time right now for the next couple of months, whether it's a lifestyle or whether it's through meditation or something like that? What would you suggest for entrepreneurs right now?
For sure. I think the biggest one is obviously stress. Like, obviously in our history, we haven't experienced any kind of stress like this. So business-wise, businesses are closed, things are shut down. There's a lot of crazy factors out there. So the biggest one is kind of just identifying that stress. Typically, we'll want to kind of ignore it and just bury it inside. But that doesn't work out too well. That will kind of cause things to manifest inside, and that can create disease. One of the simplest things you can do to help manage stress is just through periods of the day is just kind of focusing on your breath, focusing on your breathing. Okay, so if we think of basically your body is controlled by your nervous system. Okay, so there's a sympathetic part of your nervous system, which is your fight or flight. So you're under stress, you're under stress response. That's your fight or flight. Like, let's react, let's respond, let's go, 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 go. So as entrepreneurs, you guys kind of live in that state constantly, right? So whether it's your phone going off, whether it's your email going off, whether it's someone coming into the store, whether it's something happening at home, most of us live in that state. What we need to do is get out of that state a little more. Imagine like a thermostat. So we're turning the setting to your parasympathetic state. Okay, so that's your rest and digest part of your nervous system. So that's the state.
I'm going to jump in there. I'd love if you guys were here. You've seen watching Jason. He's got his hand motion going. He's doing this whole demonstration for you, which is pretty awesome.
Turn this thermostat down, right? We want to get you into that state of rest and digest, because that's where your body can heal, where you can recover. And the quickest way to do that is just focusing on your breath. So you can do simple inhale, hold, exhale, hold again, called box breathing. So say you go inhale 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, exhale 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds. So you imagine it like a box. That will basically grab control of your nervous system and allow your body to calm down. So that's the quickest way to deal with that stress response. Typically they say, so say you had a crazy email come in, a phone call, some kind of thing happen where you're pissed off, you're angry, some kind of reaction. They say that should last for about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, which is natural because that's allowing your body to kind of build up tolerance to that. Okay, so it's just like weight training, just like exercising, you're creating that stress, which is a good thing. But when it gets longer than that, when it's kind of perpetual in you all day long, all week long, and you can't sleep, it's going through your head at night, that's bad. That's where you don't want to get to. So incorporating that breath work will allow you to get out of that state much faster.
Is this something that you would do on a how many times a day would you incorporate it, or just in times of need? How would you?
In times of need, a big one, this would go highly correlated to sleep. Is if you think of how many people can't sleep at night, it's because most of us, you're so busy throughout the day that when you first lay in bed and shut the lights off and your eyes close, that's the first time where you're actually being able to be conscious of your thoughts, and all those thoughts are going through your head, right?
One thing, and I'm going to talk on my own personal note right now, a lot of entrepreneurs right now, they have to scale back their own staff. They're putting a lot more hours right now into work. Like, sure. I'm personally working like 12-hour days. I'm back to working 7 days a week, which I haven't done in probably 8 to 10 years. Yeah. And working all these hours, when it comes to I'm at 10, 11 at night, which I haven't done in a long time. I'm turning on the TV because I need some unwinding time. I need some time to watch some TV. Yeah. But now watching some TV, I'm hooked on Ozark now. So I'm watching these violent TV shows, and it's like midnight, and now I'm wired. And now it's like 1 a.m, and I can't sleep. So I'm assuming your answer is going to be don't be watching these TVs late at night. But it's, what would you recommend to somebody unwind at night just to let themselves chill down and into more of a relaxed state?
It's just time. You have to kind of, we talk about bookending your day. So how you start your day in the morning, and really, really important is kind of how you end your day at night. Okay. So you got to create those bookends for you. And that's just giving yourself some time, whether it's half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, just to put the phone down, put your TV down, and just kind of relax. So whether it's kind of just focusing on some breathing, just kind of sitting there reading something that's not too stimulating, not something that's going to fire up like the entrepreneurial brain of ideas, something that's going to allow you to slow down, and just being conscious of your breath. All of those factors will allow you to kind of gear down and get in that parasympathetic state, which will make sleep much more easier. But if we go back to sleep, like that's a huge one. You have to create that window for it. Okay. So entrepreneurs, you guys are sacrificing your sleep constantly. One of the big things you think of is, so say you go to bed at midnight and get up at 6 a.m. You think, okay, I get 6 hours of sleep every night. That's not necessarily the case. Okay. That's a 6-hour window that you have for sleep. During that time, your body's going through different sleep cycles where you're actually going to be awake through periods of the time. So with that 6-hour window, maybe you're getting 4.5, 5 hours, 5.5 if you're lucky, but you're not getting that full 6. 6 hours, if you look at all the studies, if you look at all the research, the 6-hour mark, anything less than that is where...
Now, would you consider 6 hours? So say it's broken sleep. Like I have the tendency of waking up quite a bit. So I'll wake up and I'll turn, and then I'll wake up again an hour later and I'll turn to the other side. That's broken sleep.
Yep.
So you're talking about 6 hours steady sleep or broken sleep?
Just your total time. So that's going to happen, right? As you go through those sleep cycles, you're going to wake up, you're going to adjust, you're going to turn, but that entire window needs to be bumped up a little bit more because 6 hours is the mark. Like all the research, all the studies after that, all the things of risk of injury, risk of sickness, risk of disease come under 6 hours.
Which is the next thing I wanted to jump into is your immunity. Obviously, at this time with COVID-19, having a strong immune system is key. Yep. So sleep is obviously a factor. Relief stress is a factor. Sure. What other factors? I guess you can maybe dip into nutrition and stuff like that.
Those are the big ones for sure. Sleep, if we look at a pyramid, kind of how we map this out, sleep should be the foundation of your pyramid. Above that would be stress, kind of how you deal with that. Okay, obviously those two things go hand in hand with immunity. If you're not sleeping, you're not recovering. Right? Your body's not healing. If you're stressed all the time, you're in that sympathetic state, your body's not recovering because you're in fight or flight, you're in attack mode, your body's not repairing. Next one above that would be nutrition. Okay, so think of the fuel you put in your body. Imagine putting fuel in your car, right? You're not going to go out and pour Coca-Cola in your gas tank because you know that's not going to do well for your vehicle. So bumping your immunity is just being cautious of what kind of fuel you're putting in your body. Like it's crazy right now driving around. How many people are still going through McDonald's drive-through? Like it's
the lineups are insane.
It's
the lineups
insane.
are insane.
Constantly. Like, why are you eating that? That's not real food. It's shit. It's literally like you're putting Coca-Cola in the gas tank of your car. Like, we wouldn't do that. That's crazy. But think of your body. Like, what the fuel you put in your body is what's fueling your immunity, what's fueling your cells, what's fueling your energy, right? So be extra cautious and conscious and aware of what you're putting in your body at this time.
What about supplements? What's your mindset on supplements and that, why when I talk about supplements, I go back to our sleep, melatonin. Are you a believer in that, taking it as a supplement or not?
A big thing with that is with your supplements, you kind of want to look at a food first approach. So you can get everything you need through just being more aware of what nutrition intake you're putting in your body. Supplements, the best thing to do would actually be to discuss with a certified nutritionist or registered dietitian. What they would do is kind of examine your blood work. Say you went to a doctor, got a requisition for a blood exam, they'd be able actually to look at your levels of your blood work and then help guide you better to certain supplements. But probably a big one that would benefit most people, especially if you're stressed, if you're go all the time, your food quality isn't the best, is just getting a high quality probiotic just to help with the microbes in your gut. The microbes in your gut basically help control. There's actually research basically saying that it pretty much is your entire immune system, right? So if you're taking in shitty food, alcohol, all of those things kind of wipe out the microbe of your gut, the flora of your gut.
Yeah, so you're just getting rid of all your good bacteria.
You're getting rid of all your good bacteria. It's like a nuclear bomb going in there and wiping it out, especially alcohol. So just making sure you have a good, strong probiotic will help keep that flora healthy in there, which in turn will help your immune system.
Very, very good. That's some key information for our guests, and hopefully they could utilize it. So what's your mindset? This is something I've never talked to you about, and something I've been looking into, and there's so much research on and off on it, whether it works, it doesn't work, is the whole blue lens or blue glass in the evening time. Are you a proponent of it or no?
Absolutely, right? So if we think of how much time we're spending in front of screens. I actually thought about this a while ago and it kind of blows my mind. It's really important, like when you first wake up in the day, is to get some natural light. Okay, so
that's the first thing I do is open my curtains every morning.
Perfect. Get that natural sunlight, because that basically kickstarts what's called your circadian rhythm. Okay, so our body kind of wants to wake up and go to sleep at roughly the same time every single day. Okay, but what happens is now it's bright and sunny, people go outside. What's the first thing they do when they get in their car? Put their sunglasses on. Okay, so you're blocking that natural light in the morning, which is when we need it. And then what happens, would you say, when you're watching Ozark at night?
You're
getting blue light. Yeah, you're getting blue light when you don't want it, right? Yeah. So it's like we're blocking the natural light in the day, and then we're taking in bad light during the evening when we don't want it. So those glasses will help. just being aware of how much screen time you're getting. There's actually some good settings on the iPhone. Actually has a night shift mode where it will change the filter of your screen. You can actually go in there a little deeper and you can actually make that a little stronger. So you can go like full red screen. I can show you this, but obviously people won't be able to see it, but you can set it up as a shortcut where you can put the whole screen red.
Oh, very cool.
So that's just an extra layer of that filter. Just makes it a little bit stronger. But a big thing, again, if we go back to that bookend, it's allowing yourself time to put those devices down where you're not just laying in bed and the lights are off.
So you're a proponent of what, an hour prior, just shutting off all your devices?
Yeah, I would say at least an hour prior.
And what about getting up? You always hear it. A lot of people are proponent of the first hour of your day, don't touch your phone.
Yeah, obviously that's tough to do, but so what happens there is, again, so say you wake up in the morning, right? Yeah. You haven't even powered yourself up. Maybe you just roll over in bed and grab your phone. You haven't even powered yourself up yet, and you're reacting to whatever's going on around you. So you may have 50 emails that came in. You may have missed calls. You may have text messages. So right off the bat, you haven't even got yourself out of bed.
I fall in that category. And that's the first thing I do is I roll up, I get out of bed, I do a quick little 2-minute stretch, and I grab my phone and run to your phone.
And then what happens, right? So you're seeing all that stuff, and then you're reacting.
Your triggers, you're automatically set off, and your triggers are just going, right?
100%.
And especially if you got some stuff, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm behind my day, or this happens, or okay, now I got to deal with this, which is unexpected. So everything changes automatically at that moment.
Everything changes, right? So if we go back to that thermostat analogy, like maybe you got into the parasympathetic state through your sleep, like maybe you actually had a good night's sleep, but as soon as you check that phone and all that stuff is there, you're going right back into that stress response, right? So if you can just hold off on that a little bit, just give yourself 20, 30, 45 minutes, an hour, just to kind of do some things you like boost yourself up a little bit, do a little movement, get a little natural light, open the curtains, like you said, have a good breakfast where you're just kind of chill and can power yourself up. Now you're more prepared. Now you can go into that thing and you're going to be able to tolerate it a little bit more because you've taken a time to just boost yourself up and get yourself ready for it.
At the end of the show, I'm going to put all these notes into our show note for you guys to go through and just hopefully incorporate some of them into your own lifestyle and see the benefit of it. One thing you just said right there was breakfast. One thing I've played around with for the last probably year and a half or so was fasting, intermediate fasting. Yep. What are your thoughts on that? What's your mindset with intermediate fasting?
Again, same thing. I think if anyone has significant nutritional concerns, they should talk to a registered dietitian or nutritionist. But if we think of kind of where things are at now, so let's use that same analogy. This entrepreneur goes to bed at midnight, gets up at 6 a.m., maybe jams something in their mouth for breakfast. Maybe it's not the most nutritional thing. Maybe let's just say a bowl of cereal. So you're eating a bowl of cereal at 6 a.m., and now you're getting home at 10 p.m. Excuse me. So if you're eating from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., right? Like look at that time. What is that? 16 hours. Yeah. 16 hours where you're eating food. Okay. So then the rest of that time is when you're sleeping. So maybe 8 hours. It should actually be the opposite. Okay. So we think of like what all the research says for time restricted eating is basically you want to have an 8-hour window where you're consuming that food, consuming all those calories, and then 16 hours where you're allowing your body that time to process things. So you're allowing your cells a chance to clear out, basically what's called cellular autophagy. It's basically giving your body time to break down and utilize all the stuff you've had in there just so it can utilize it, where it's not constantly being bombarded with nutrition and all the other elements of your food.
Yeah, that's something like right now my schedule is I try to cut off my last meal, and I'm talking about a meal, it's a snack. I might have a bowl of cherries or something like that at like say 9 o'clock. Yeah. And then I'm on completely black coffee till about 11, 12 o'clock the next day. Yeah. So I do have a huge nice gap, and I find I recover faster. I find I find the benefits of it. I try not to, I don't do it on weekends because I like having breakfast with the kids and stuff like that on the weekends, but I do it Monday to Friday. I'm pretty steady on it where I'll try to cut off my last snack or meal at 9 o'clock, and then the next day I usually don't have nothing till about 11:30, 12 o'clock, and that's when I'll first have my lunch, and then I'll have that 9-hour gap of eating, and then I have the rest of the day of just more intermediate fasting.
Yeah, that's the huge thing, right? Is just kind of try it out and see how your body feels, see how you respond. Like maybe you're not going through that blood sugar spike through having that sugary breakfast in the morning, which is typical that a lot of people have. And you don't have to jump into it right away. You don't have to jump into the 16-8 window. If you're going 16 hours where you are eating food, like just cut it back to 14, then cut it back to 12, and then cut it back to 10. Right?
Yeah, so you just play around and see how your body responds and how you feel with it.
Exactly. So just experiment with it and kind of see how you feel.
Is this something you've done on a personal level?
Absolutely, on a personal level, yeah. So this would have been 2018. My schedule changed a little bit. So same thing, I was going from eating, say, breakfast at 8 a.m. and then would stop eating, was having a late dinner around 11:30. And the same thing, like started getting stomach pains, started waking up in the middle of the night with just discomfort. And that was the biggest thing that led me to this info, is that I was just consuming too much throughout the day and my body didn't have time to process and deal with it. And that gets a little more difficult as you start to get older. So I'm sort of looking at that research and looking at that and experimenting with myself, and was able to curb that and notice huge improvements, both cognitively, physically, energy wise. It was absolutely huge.
What are your recommendations for, like I said, right now, schedule wise, it feels like most entrepreneurs are working a tremendous amount of hours. And even for those that are a little slower now, their business is going, they're focused on social media. They're focused on still on the back end, trying to keep their companies going and trying to build for the hopefully the near future that we actually reopen and businesses get it back on the schedule. Fitness wise, if they're home right now, what do you need at home equipment wise? Do you need kettlebells? What do you need at home to actually have a quick little workout?
Nothing really. I mean, it depends how creative you are, and it depends on the space you have. Like, you can use it as an excuse, like, oh, I don't have anything here, I'm not going to do anything. Or you can be like, okay, well, I have space, I have my body. You can go outside, you can go for a walk, you can go for a run. There's all kinds of things you can do, right? You can get a great workout in just body weight wise. You don't need a ton of equipment. If you do, all the more power to you. You can get more creative with it, but you don't need a lot. There's certain things that you can do. You can work on your squat pattern, your hinge pattern, your push-ups. You can do activation through your shoulders and some rows. You can hammer your trunk in terms of your core strength, core stability. Like all these certain things, you can do that with no equipment and just having some space in your house. A big thing to focus on, which is what we've been hammering on for the last little while in terms of our daily posts on Epic, is addressing those areas, right? So say you're working at home now, you're going to be seated a little more, especially if you're in your business before, you're more so active. You're going to be seated a lot more now. Okay, so what happens when we're seated constantly is basically our glutes shut off and our abdominal wall starts to get weak. Okay, so those are two key areas that we want to keep strong for health and fitness related in general, but also just as we age, those are two important areas. Lower back pain. You got to keep your glutes strong and you got to keep your core strong. So two big areas to focus on if you're going to be doing anything at home.
Now, one thing I wanted to talk to you about too, which is, I guess, is going back to your Pro Strength Inc. brand and company, working with pro athletes. What experiences, what benefits you've had? A day of working with a pro athlete. How's your day run with a pro athlete?
It depends on the individual, but if you kind of look at, it could be the best in any walk of life. If you look at these people, these characteristics, there's a lot of commonalities that they have, is that they're extremely consistent, right? And this can apply to entrepreneurs too. Like, I'm sure you know some of the most successful people that you know, they all kind of have these traits. They're extremely consistent, whether they're there at the certain time, same time every day, same routine.
I'm gonna jump in there.
Yeah.
I thought about this yesterday. I just rang back in my head. When I was about 18, 19, I was doing sales consulting for a chain of fitness gyms. And one gentleman I met there, he was kind of like the guru of sales back then in the time. His name was Steve. And this guy was at the gym every single day at 5 a.m. And I remember, I don't know why this always stuck with me. He always said, he goes, you want to meet successful people? He goes, get yourself to the gym super early. He goes, the most successful people are in the gym super early, getting the workout done because they have the rest of it. They want to focus the rest of their day on their business. So they get their workouts done first thing in the morning. Yeah. So it's just like I said, I guess it's just been building a trend like that, right?
For sure, yeah. And that goes back to what we started, like, how do you start your day? Like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, talks about that. He's in the gym at 4:35 a.m. and he talks about that being his anchor for his day, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's a professional athlete, it doesn't matter if it's a successful business person, it doesn't matter if it's someone who just wants to be more successful in their daily life in terms of feeling better. You have to kind of create that schedule and create that consistency in your day, and just a matter of showing up and doing it every single day. So we go back to all those people, like the same qualities: consistent, extremely diligent with their work, also have an extremely strong mindset. That doesn't mean they get upset. Don't get upset. It doesn't mean they don't have setbacks. It doesn't mean they don't have obstacles.
Everybody has setbacks. Everybody has bad days, right?
It's when that happens, they don't just turn around and quit. They find a way and keep going and keep persevering. And now more than ever, with what's going on right now, that's extremely important for all of us.
Which is a staple for entrepreneurs. A true entrepreneur is just you find a way to get it done.
Find a way. Yeah.
And that's, I guess you could look at a pro athlete is almost an entrepreneur. Their body's their business.
They are 100%. Absolutely.
Okay. One thing I was talking to Jason before we got on air today was we were talking about the Michael Jordan documentary on ESPN, The Last Dance. And we were talking about, I guess, mindset and how incredible how people, whether you're an entrepreneur, this is one of those documentaries I would recommend anybody to watch, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a pro athlete, a young athlete trying to become a pro athlete, how mindset is such a key to getting to where you want to get to. You want to talk a little bit about that, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. So watching this growing up, I was a teenager kind of in Michael Jordan heyday and always appreciated him, always respected him, but just watching this and getting insight to kind of what goes on behind the scenes, like I have a totally new appreciation for him. Like I'm so fascinated by watching this documentary in terms of how this guy just willed himself to be the absolute best. Like wasn't going to stop, wasn't going to accept no for an answer. It's not people. We like to think that people are kind of born successful or we're born elite or this kind of thing happens like, oh, I can never do this because I didn't have that. All that stuff is bullshit. All that matters is that you consistently put in the work. Like if you watch kind of how this guy responded over his whole life, like he was just continually getting better every single day and kind of look at what the end result was. So that's testament is you have to have that mindset and you're never going to quit and just keep finding ways to improve. And when you look back over time, it's pretty impressive of what you can accomplish no matter who you are.
One thing to ask guests is through your journey, is there anything you would have changed onto your point where you are right now?
No, absolutely not. Because all of those roads, all those avenues have led you here, right? So if you go back and change something, like who knows where you would have ended up? You wouldn't be where you are right now. So appreciate all those setbacks, appreciate all those hard times because those are what have allowed you to get to where you are today.
If you weren't in the fitness industry and I guess you call it a self-healing industry as well, like just what industry would you get yourself into? What would you want to be?
That's a good question. So I don't really know, but I remember 2017 kind of wrestling through a lot of thoughts in my mind, kind of like, what has led me down this path? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And it all boils down to just wanting to help people. So whether it's someone who just wants to wake up every day and feel a little bit better, not be in pain, not be in discomfort, feel better, feel healthier, or whether it's a professional athlete who's wanting to constantly improve each and every day to be the best they can be, to be one of the best of all time, to win a championship. For me, it just boils down to wanting to help people, and it could be anyone in that walk of life,
How's your connection with some of these athletes? Is it more of a personal level or is it always a business level?
I would say it's a blend in both. It depends on the personalities. It depends kind of on your rapport, on your background as well. But yeah, it depends.
Is there some athletes that you work with and you're like, fuck, I hate this guy. I really don't want to be there?
Well,
you don't have to name names, obviously.
People have different personalities, right? So some personalities you'll get along better with. You're able to communicate a little bit better with, and there's obviously going to be some difficult personalities that you deal with along the way. It's just
have some of these pro athletes you're working with, and obviously we're not going to be giving names today for personal reasons, but some of these pro athletes you're working with, and are some of them you become like lifetime long friends with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. Like you build strong relationships, and it doesn't have to be a pro athlete. This can be a high school athlete, and it's the same thing, right? It's the same characteristics that make people good or make people not so good, depending on their personal characteristics and the choices that they make. But yeah, absolutely, there's people that you connect with through your entire life, and they're always going to be around, and you're always going to stay in touch and in contact just because you've built that relationship and that rapport.
Is there one particular athlete that's been most rewarding seeing them succeed?
Yeah, there's quite a few actually, but it's really empowering and really special to kind of watch an athlete go from making what seems like a difficult dream to actually realize maybe they have the idea in their mind that they want to get to this point at some day, but actually seeing them accomplish that along the way, like that's extremely rewarding, extremely empowering, I would say.
Yeah. And what level, when you're talking about that, what level were you starting with some of these athletes? Like right through high school, or is this?
Yeah, some right through high school, some as soon as they were drafted or entered a professional organization. And a lot of guys think like as soon as you become a professional athlete, you're done, you're set. You're just going to get there.
That's the pure opposite.
Yeah, it's the pure opposite. Like that's your invite to the dance. Now you got your foot in the door. Now you have to fucking kick that door down and get to where you ultimately want to be. And even when you're there, it's the same thing. You have to keep going because as soon as you lay off the gas, it's like business. As soon as you lay off the gas a little bit, you know, what's the end result? You're done.
With that, this is something I wasn't even going to dip into, but let's talk about pro athletes till they hit the majors. Like, how hard of a lifestyle is it for some of these athletes? And just in general, because coming from your side, we're dealing with nutrition, we're dealing with training, we're doing all this. A lot of people think once you get drafted, once you get into a major league organization, which is primarily you deal with the major league athletes, when you get to a major league organization, it's bells and whistles and we're going. It's nothing like that till you get to the majors, is it?
No, it's nothing like that. It could be any sport really. Like you're trying to fight and claw your way all the way up there. Like as the higher level up you get, the resources are better, the facilities are better, everything's better as you get higher up. But when you're down low, like you're constantly, like they say it's a grind, it is a grind. So imagine a local MMA fighter who's trying to work their way up to the UFC, right? Like look at all the things they have to do on their own, right? In terms of training, in terms of sparring, in terms of getting money, in terms of sponsorship, in terms of nutrition. And then what happens when they get to the UFC? Look at all the resources they have. They just built a phenomenal performance center where these guys can go and they have everything at their disposal, right? So it's the same thing. Like you kind of have, it's like, how bad do you want it? Are you willing to fight and are you willing to persevere through all that shit per se to get to where you want to go? And it weeds a lot of people out because a lot of people think they want it, but when it comes time to kind of put in that daily work every single day and fight through all that stuff, all those difficulties, it's like anything in life, it weeds a lot of people out.
When it comes to entrepreneurs, and this is obviously our majority of our clientele that are listening to this episode, fitness, nutrition, obviously stress relief, all that stuff like that. If you were going to give it a percent of the day, or even a percent in general, like 50% of it is valuable, 60%, how much percent of it, and what would you say is the most important part that they have to focus? If they only had to focus on one section, they have a day they had time on.
For entrepreneurs,
yeah,
I think it's stress. I think it's stress and sleep. I think those should be your two biggest areas of focus, right? The biggest thing is like you don't realize how much sleep affects you, and this is something that I realized again in 2017. Like I bought a Fitbit. I started wearing a Fitbit, and then I realized like, oh, my sleep is actually not great. Like it would kind of be like, okay, I'm gonna stay up and watch Monday Night Football or the end of this hockey game and go to bed at maybe one night's 11, maybe one night's 12, maybe one night's 1 in the morning. And you're waking up and like you feel foggy, you don't really feel that good. This is kind of an analogy I use. You don't really know how good it feels to feel good until you actually feel good. So just being aware of that sleep, like make that your first priority right now. Okay. So just be aware of your sleep, try and make it a little better. And then just notice how you feel over the next few days. And then kind of dealing with that stress. Okay. So if a text comes in, a phone call comes in, an email comes in, be pissed about it give yourself 90 seconds, 2 minutes. This is something Tony Robbins talks about. Give yourself 2 minutes to kind of deal with it. And then after that, it's gone. Okay. So focus on your breath work and grab that thermostat and get out of that fight or flight response. Those two things alone will help entrepreneurs in every aspect of their life. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be more productive. You're going to be more creative just by taking control of those two things.
Jason, I'm going to throw out two questions to you and
fire away.
If you had one superpower, what would it be and why?
Oof, I had one superpower. What would it be and why? That's a good question. My superpower probably would be...
Your voice is raised when you said that.
Sorry.
You got excited there.
Honestly, for me, this is going to sound maybe corny or cheesy, but I would like to be immortal. I love living. I love life. I would like to live forever and just kind of see what's happening. What's going to happen, where these years are going to go, what's going to happen in the next 100, 200 years, because I think it's really interesting.
Interesting. I'm sure there's ways of doing that.
Maybe it's changing rapidly.
With stem cell research, what are your thoughts on stem cell research? That's just pure off topic.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know too much about it, but I know it seems to be growing and seems to be a growing area of discussion and area of research. But it depends. You'd have to kind of look at it a little bit more. But all all signs seem to point that it seems to be pretty beneficial depending on what you're trying to do.
If you had in a few words, this is obviously, first you want to be immortal. This is the pure opposite. If you had in a few words how you want to be described one day when you're gone, what would those words be?
A few words, good human being. I think that's something that we should all strive towards.
Look at that. Huh?
If you
Simple,
just focus on that, everything else will get better.
I 100% agree. 100% agree. That's one thing a lot of people don't live by.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up. It's easy to be frustrated. It's easy to react. But you have to think that every reaction you throw out there, someone else is taking that and they're rebounding the same thing, right? So you can kind of choose your action, choose how you respond, and that stuff will come back to you tenfold.
With your Epic brand right now and your Epic company right now, are you taking on clientele right now on a virtual level? Like, what are you doing? Because the COVID-19 and all this stuff, you're not doing a lot of one-on-one in person.
Yeah, not doing a lot of one-on-one. What we are doing is we're trying to put out as much information as we can on a daily basis just to help people. So that started with our articles on the site. So if we look at those 5 key areas, we have articles for each one of those. But now it's just kind of putting out that content daily on social media, and we're getting some questions in there. So just kind of helping, trying to direct people through different areas that they may want to explore a little bit more. So that's still growing, that's still evolving, and that's something that we're really excited about.
Are you taking on new clients right now, like entrepreneurs, if they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, always. Yeah, we're always able to help. So
okay, so at the end of the show, obviously on the show notes, we are going to put all Jason's contact information and social media platforms and all that stuff. So you could have tons of ways to get in contact with Jason if you have any questions and all that stuff. I just want to finish off by saying it's a pleasure having you. You are our first guest on Jeff Knows Inc., which is pretty cool.
Thanks for having me.
And I consider you a friend, so this is really great having you. Just learning a little bit more about you. I had no idea about your baseball side. I had no idea about heading off to Montreal. So I learned a little bit about you today, which is awesome as well. And you opened up a little bit of talking about your past of being obviously going through separation and stuff like that. And do you have anything you want to tell the audience out there?
Oh, that's it. I mean, like we said, it's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to get consumed by kind of what's happening, but just go within yourself and just take a step each day, like we've kind of posted on in the last few days, is that it doesn't matter where you start. Like we always want to think that we have to have everything lined up before we move forward. None of that matters. All that matters is that you do something today to kind of put you in that direction. Because once you take that first step, now you're in a different space, and now you can kind of continue to move forward and forward.
That's one thing I say at the end of all our show notes, and even to finish off our shows, I always say, always move forward. And I guess we're going to wrap it like that.
That's it.
Once again, appreciate you having you here, Jason, and sure we'll have you back on.
Thanks for having me.
A lot sooner than later. I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to this week's podcast of Jeff Knows Inc. It was amazing to have Jason on. He's a bundle of knowledge when it comes to health and wellness. I'm sure you guys took a ton of information away from this all today, which is why I do these podcasts and why we continue to do these podcasts. I'm going to put in our show notes a ton of information, how you can contact Jason if you have any more questions, and also some of the keynotes that he spoke about in this podcast so you guys could relate back to them. Also, I'm super, super excited. Over the next couple weeks, we got a ton of guests lined up. So it's going to be week after week with amazing guests, amazing information, and hopefully a ton of entertainment for you guys. Once again, I just want to thank you for listening. If you can, please leave us 5-star reviews. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Tell your friends about us. Tell your family about us. Tell everyone around about us. Trying to build our audience up, and we're only going to do that with your help. I hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you guys next week. And like always move forward, guys. Peace out.